There is a version of you that learned how to survive before it ever learned how to live. Not because you were broken, but because something happened before you had the language to understand it. And instead of processing it, you adapted to it. You adjusted. You got quiet. You got strong. You got good at pretending. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking what happened to you and started telling yourself nothing happened. But your body knew. Your reactions knew. Your patterns knew. Your relationships knew. Your cravings knew. You just didn't have the words yet. That's where this episode lives. Not in the obvious trauma, not in the dramatic moment, but in that quiet truth that sits underneath it all. Welcome back to the Turning Point Journey podcast. I'm your host, Hampig, and I'm so glad to be back again doing this after a short little break. There's a lot going on with the Turning Point Journey and what we have coming up. And also there's a lot going on in my personal life as well. I am doing my master's degree currently, so I had taken some time away from doing the podcast and also traveled all around the country, driving all the way down to Florida and driving back, doing the road to recovery. There's some amazing stops and people that I met along the way, and I honestly cannot wait to share that with you. Please allow me some time to get those episodes out to you. Thank you again for listening, and let's get into it. Let me say something that most people don't hear until it's way too late. Just because you don't remember it clearly doesn't mean it didn't shape you completely. There are things we go through, especially as kids, that never get processed. Not because we choose to ignore them, but because we couldn't. We didn't have the tools. We didn't have the safety. We didn't have the understanding. So, what does the brain do? Well, the brain protects you. It files it away, it softens it, it buries it, it lies to you sometimes. But the body remembers. The body does not forget. It stores it in as tension, as fear, hyper-awareness, in the way you react when something feels off, but you can't really quite explain why. And then one day, you grow up. You start asking yourself, why do I feel like this? Why do I react like this? Why do I push people away and then hate being alone? I mean, that's very important, especially with some of the reading that I've been doing. When it comes to, abuse as a young kid, one of the main things we fall short on is our relationships and our relationships with other human beings, whether it be a friendship or a romantic relationship. We have this barrier that we've built throughout, our childhood because of that abuse. And most people don't trace it back. That's one of the problems. They label it, they nudge it, they try to fix it at the surface level. But what if what you're calling a flaw is actually a memory stored deep? Now, let's talk about something that hides in plain sight. Shame. I'm talking about that quiet version of shame, the kind that says, I don't like myself, and I don't know why. Not in a dramatic way, in a subtle, everyday type of way. The way you almost second guess yourself, the way you don't fully open up to people, the way you let people get close, but not too close, only to push them away. That line says, I'll let you in, but I don't want you in. That right there, that's not personality. That's you protecting. That's you. That's your protection. That's you being protective. That's someone who learned early on, if people really see me, I might not be safe. I might not be loved. So, what do we do? There's an amazing book that I read called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And in this book, and it's full of tremendous insight. So, in this book, he describes how the brain, if you look at it from top down as a pyramid, the brain's number one job is survival. That's what it does. And by the time a message is relayed to that prefrontal cortex, your body is already shut down. That's why we have all these traumatic nuances to us. There's a story of a gentleman who was abused by a priest. And in the story, the gentleman is trying to establish a healthy relationship with somebody, but he always ends up sabotaging the relationship with that person because his body is not able to handle closeness with another human being. Dr. Cook kind of goes on to explain this whole process of how trauma is stored, how trauma is processed. It's an amazing book to read, that's for sure. So I'm going to ask again, what do? We manage it. We control access. We control our perception. We control how much of us gets seen. And in time with therapy, you're able to adjust those feelings. And we call that independence. We call that strength. And underneath it is a kid who just didn't feel safe being fully known. So, here's where it gets real. Because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. Addiction is not the beginning of the story. It's the response to the story. Nobody wakes up one day and says, you know what? I want to destroy my life. I want to burn down everything I've worked so hard for and eventually perish and die. No, that's not what we think. They find something that works, something that quiets the noise, something that numbs the tension, something that finally gives them the relief that they need. I've learned that it doesn't have to be alcohol, but alcohol is the only thing that's available to us readily and socially accepted. And for a moment, it feels like medicine almost, right? Because it is just not the kind that heals. It's the kind that it gives you the strength to hide, and that's the dangerous part. Because now your brain goes, that's working. This works. So it repeats it and repeats it. And guess what? It repeats it until one day you're not using it for relief anymore. You're using it just to feel normal again because everything's skewed. But if you don't go back to what needed relief in the first place, you'll spend your whole life fighting the symptom and never touch the root of it. This is why this conversation really matters. Because today's guest didn't just talk about healing, she lived through the layers of it. From childhood trauma, to addiction, to treatment, to rebuilding her own identity, and eventually to doing the kind of work where she helps others walk through their own healing. Not rescue them, not fix them. We have to understand that. We can't fix anybody. But you walk with them. And that's the truth. This embodies who Shannon Curtis is. And her story doesn't start with clarity. It starts with something a lot of people listening will recognize. I knew something happened, I just couldn't say what. Let's get into it. Here's my interview with Shannon Curtis. Shannon, thank you for being here. Your story carries so much depth and honesty, and I know it's going to speak to a lot of people listening right now. Before we dive into anything you've lived through and built, I want to start right where you are today. For those meeting you for the first time, how do you introduce yourself and the work you do now?
First, I would just want to say thank you so much for having me on today. And I'm
Okay.
Shannon Curtis. I'm the founder of Angel Goddess Healing. I'm here in Texas right now. And so, right now, I've created a space for people to come and heal. I just created a space for people to come and be themselves, be the love and the light, find the love that they've missed out on, and to really just start healing those childhood wounds and those wounds that we have that we carry. And so, I just offer a safe space for that for people that are willing to do that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome, and I appreciate you being on our show. When did you first sense something was not right in your story? As you were beginning to grow as a child into your adolescence, into your college years, kind of give us a little bit of your background and where you are from that point forward.
I think I always knew, but my story started when I was 4. My healing journey, I guess I could say, was that my mom and dad worked at the time, and my 2 older sisters were in school. They were a couple years older. And so I was home with our house sitter kind of person. And so there was a person, an older man, that came by the house. And I think my dad kind of knew him. He played sports with him on the weekend. And he asked if he could take me for the day. And so she called to ask my mom, and fate have it, she didn't answer. And so she went ahead and let me go with this person. And so that's where my journey starts. I didn't remember a whole lot. I just remember going, I met bits and pieces, and I remember coming home. And I remember coming home, and back in the 80s, when you went to McDonald's, you got the balloon. And so I remember this red balloon. And so my mom came in the room and asked where I got that from. And as soon as I told her that, as soon as I said that and who took me, I could see her face change. And I would imagine my intuitive little 4-year-old self could feel what was coming off of her and the fear. I was probably feeling her fear. So as soon as she asked me what happened, I said, nothing, nothing. And that was my answer. So all my life, that was my answer, was nothing happened, nothing happened. But I knew in my body something did. And so that led me down this path of not really understanding who I was, not understanding my sexuality and the power of it and all those things, because it got taken away from me. And so that led me down 7 years of a painful thing of addiction. And it all started with my daughter when I finally had her, and they give you that morphine. And it was like that sweet relief that you start to feel. It's like you think that's actually your medicine. Yeah. And it wasn't. And so that led me down this path of 7 years of dealing with pain medicine. And it was kind of that right on the brink of the opiate epidemic. And so I found myself going to treatment, and I was finally ready for it after I kind of exhausted all avenues of being like, look at me, see me, I'm over here, I'm here hurting, guys, I'm hurting. And so once I finally got that validation that, yeah, something's wrong, I hopped on a plane and I went to Arizona to this wonderful treatment center, the Meadows, where I took 6 weeks out of my life to actually start discovering who Shannon is and the things that are going on and why. Why am I being this way? It was all the shame, but I never stopped to be curious why I was doing these behaviors. So once I did that, it led me down my journey of sobriety, and it opened up this whole new door for me. But then it opened up this door of scariness of who am I without the alcohol, without the substances? Who am I? And so I went and I dug really, really deep. But then I would say right in my 40s, I started feeling this thing of, I don't think I'm being my most authentic self. And it scared me. And I was in a marriage for 15 years, and it just seemed like wasn't serving me anymore. But I was scared. I was scared to hurt him. And so all my life, a lot of times when things happen, traumas, we either go out or in. We either hurt everyone or we hurt ourselves. I was the one who hurt myself. And so I was suffering. So I made the brave choice to say, this is no longer serving me. And we went down that path, and it's been a couple years. And so that led me to finding me who I am. And ultimately, I was ready to know what happened to me. And my partner now, he found himself in Mexico at Ambio Life Services, sitting with Ibogaine. It's a plant medicine. And so after he went and I saw the beautiful transformation, I decided to go too. I was scared. I was just scared. And once I was scared, I was like, okay, I got to do it because I am. And so that really started my path of remembrance. I got to see what happened to me and I got to heal it. And we'll go into all of that. But that's really what led me to where I am, is seeing my whole story and going all the way back to the womb. And I think that is so important, to go all the way back.
Yeah, that's pretty intense and deep. I do have to say, you kind of touched on a lot of things in your introduction here, and your first realization was knowing that something was wrong the minute your mom kind of asked you, and the reference to the red balloon. That's pretty deep. I'm sure until this day it kind of gets to you when you see a red balloon. I'm sure there's like connotative message there, but you've gone
No,
through your
it
healing.
doesn't. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
you've gone.
I'm so glad you asked that, though. That's a great
Okay.
question. That's a great question. It's always a great thing to know if things start bothering me. And they
Yeah.
had in the past, right? They had, because it hadn't been healed. But that's what it is when you see those things and you're like, it doesn't have power over me. That's the power of healing, is knowing, yes, when I see that red balloon, maybe it's because a kid's holding it. I'm going to smile and see that. I'm not going to see my trauma.
That's amazing. That's transformation for you right there, and I love that. What did shame look like in daily life for you, and how did you carry that as you were growing up?
So shame for me looked like not liking myself, not liking myself. And it was this weird battle because I knew inside who I was and I had a lot of confidence, but I didn't want to fully shine. So it was like that I got to control it. So I would say my narrative is I liked the control of, I'll let you in, but I don't want you in. I'll let you in, but I don't want you in. That was kind of my thing because ultimately I didn't know who I was without this trauma. And so I would say that was the biggest thing, was the shame, was not letting people in, was seeing who I really was and trusting if they saw who I really was, I would still be worthy of being liked and loved and seen.
Yeah, it's really tough when you are battling that guilt and that shame, to like open up yourself to being loved again or cared for again, and just kind of like understanding um, where this journey has taken you till now. I mean, you even said it earlier. You said it wasn't until after my 40s where I kind of started developing to find out who Shannon really is, and that's I think for everybody, that's the transformation we would want, to truly understand who we are and what it takes to kind of get to that point, because we all will have some form of trauma, whether it's minute or in a larger scale, but we all do. And it's a blessing to hear your story and how you've transformed into who you are today, and that's amazing to hear. You later sat with plant medicine as you're explaining. What was your intention and what changed afterwards after you tried plant medicine? Because that's kind of how you've uh, based angel goddess healing around. If I'm correct, right?
Yeah, so that's such a great question because it really goes across the board that we're going into this movement of plant medicine coming back. And it's as beautiful and wonderful as healing plant medicine can be. And that's why I became the coach I am, and working with people that sit with medicine is because you have to know your intentions. You have to start there because a lot of times the plant medicine, we used it to check out. Right? We use it to go to the parties and get high and all these things, literally check out from our pain. So plant medicine is supposed to be to help you check in with the pain and know that you can move through it. And that's where the beautiful medicine is. But when we use it in the wrong way, that's what we get. And so sometimes anxiety that comes from cannabis, it's because we're out in the party, we're feeling more stuff. It makes you feel, which is what you're supposed to do. But guess what? If you don't like feeling, you're not going to like that. Or if you're around a bunch of people that don't have good intentions, you're going to feel that. So if you're in a space that is for healing, that's what you're going to feel. And so it all started with the intention. And so once I saw my partner go down there, and they work a lot with vets, they work with addicts, because the medicine, you don't have to go with withdrawals. And there's all these wonderful things for this community. But mine was just scared. I was just scared of the unknown, which so many of us can relate to. What am I going to see? What am I going to find out? So again, if my intention is who am I can't be scared to know who I am. So I walked in there with the intention. I was like, I'm ready to know. And so I began, the only way I can explain it to people, it's like going on a dream. Some people don't have visuals, but it's literally at nighttime and you lay with the mask and that's it. It's you in the mask and there's other people in the room, but that's it. And when you close your eyes, you're gone. You're in another place. Someone taps on you, you open your mask and you're like, yes, you're right back. It's like sleeping in the dream state. And so mine was that. And as soon as I knew, God came to me and I had the essence of God right there. And he was like, are you ready to see? And before I was like, yes, I am ready. I knew. And so that was like how my journey started, was looking at it. And the way it was, and the best way I can describe it is I was watching the movie. So I was detached from that little girl that I saw, which is so important in the healing because I saw what happened in a different understanding without the attachment of that little girl being her. So when I saw that and I looked in the car, I was on the left-hand side and he was on the right. And so they showed me in a very kind way, but I knew what happened. And so in that moment when I knew, I had to cry. And I was like that little girl it hurt my heart. I was watching a child and I knew. And so I did that. And then it was the relief. And it was the relief. I always knew. I'm not crazy. I knew. My body knew. And then the last was like the understanding. Well, first it was the anger. I'm sorry. I looked down and you said the red balloon. All I can describe was just like a red knotted yarn. And it was all of anger. And it was in my tummy area, and I looked and I was like, oh God, this is bad. And he was like, yeah. And I said, this is not mine. It's not mine. And I literally gave it to my perpetrator. In my mind, I visually just gave all of that. And then I'm still looking at him and he's still there. I'm like, and I'm looking at him through the view of God. And when I looked at him through the eyes of God, he was of the same light as me. And so it was that instant of how can I hate you? You're one of God's children too. You just did something bad to me that I don't like and I don't agree with, but I saw what it did to me in my body and I don't want that anymore. So I'm giving it to you and whatever you do with it, but I love you. I love you. And I sent love. And it was that moment of forgiveness. And it was just like this, almost like it felt bad to feel that good, forgiving. And I think that's why, because we think forgiveness is all this anger making them hurt. No, in the moment I said, I'm setting my pain free and I set you free from the pain. I forgive you. And whatever you do that is on you, that is in the moment of pure magic of understanding the creation and that we have to do things. If I wanted to feel forgiveness, somebody had to do something for me to forgive. And it was as simple as that. And that was my moment of true remembrance of knowing it was done for me, not to me.
That's very intentional how you described everything. That's beautiful. I want to go back a little bit more, although I have so many questions. Honestly, I do. I want to go back to the plant medicine portion of things because I know there's a lot of people that don't know what plant medicine is. If you can kind of explain, you kind of explained the procedure. You're saying you're lying down with a mask and you go to sleep and it's more of like an altered state that you have where you're like viewing yourself from above and you're kind of seeing the vision of you from your perspective, but in a third person eye. So it's pretty eye-opening if you think about it. What type of medicine are we talking? Like give some examples of, I know going a little bit off here, but I'm kind of curious on what plant medicine is and what are some of the types of medicine that you work with and you had experience with, and how did it make you feel? Because a lot of people are scared just like you were. They would want to know that feeling of like, oh, I tried this and it made me feel like this. So I'm kind of curious on that.
Yeah, so a lot of my clients I work with, that's what I do. One portion of mine is we work with getting people ready for that. So if they're going to Mexico, because unfortunately it's not legal here yet for medical reasons, but I'm really excited about Texas. The place I went to, Ambio, they're actually starting to study it. And Texas passed that, where they're doing that because they're seeing literally all the miracles going on. And with the vets and the PTSD and the depression and the addicts and across the board, it's just helping helping with all of this stuff. And so ibogaine is what I sat in, and it's from iboga. It's a plant. It's just a plant, a tree shrub from West Africa. And so that is more of, they call it like the strongest one. We call it like the power washing. Okay. So you're going to sit in that medicine. You have to be medically supervised because it can lower your heart a little bit. And so the safe thing, the thing I like about Ambio or wherever you want to go is because you have the medical staff there. So you feel like, okay, I am protected that way. But then they also honor the tradition, and you listen to the tradition of the music, and they have the smudging, and you do a sweat lodge the first day, and you have Reiki and massage, and they feed you so good. So they basically take care of your mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
Not all places are like that. So that's why I always tell people, really vet where you're going. But that's ibogaine. So I haven't sat in ayahuasca. I help people, and I understand the concept of it. And it's a little bit more where you're in a room, people, and you have the maestro and the singing and stuff. And I always say, be curious about that. I know I'll sit in it one day, but I want to go to Peru. I want to go. I like to actually work with them, because I really like to vet who I'm going to be with. And so that's really important. Whoever's serving you medicine, they're serving you something. So be very, very careful and curious who you work with, because there's a lot of people out there in this space that don't always have the best intentions. And so unfortunately, you see that in the plant medicine space, in the spiritual world, not everyone's doing their work, and some of them had their bad intentions. And so I'm recognizing that, but there's some really great places out there. And so those are the two that people know about, but ibogaine really does the power washing. It felt like on a cellular level. It comes in, my visions were just out of this world. But I will preface, mine's probably like a 1% experience. Most people don't have that. And what it does is it opens up your belief system. Okay. So if your belief system is a little wonky and you got some false things or you got some fears, it will show you it. But it's showing it for you so you can change it. So people are scared to sit in these plant medicines because it's like a reflector. It's basically saying, what do you believe? So as soon as I saw that, mine was like easy peasy, but there was one moment where at the end you can take a booster, or mine, you could take a little bit more if you're doing good. And so I did. And I remember the vision started coming. And all of a sudden, I started seeing this not so fun face. Like it looked like a devilish face. And I'll never forget, I had the mask on. And I looked and I smiled. And I said, you don't scare me. I know who I am. And it goes poof. And it just went away. And that was so interesting, because I had this stuff where God told me, like, you're an angel and a messenger of love and light, and that's your purpose and all these things. But it was like this trick at the very end. And it was this thing of, I just never will forget smiling and saying, you don't scare me. And so it's that thing of when you know you're ultimately protected from the light, nothing bad's going to happen. And so a lot of people are scared of plant medicine because of what's going to come up. And so that's why, like, coaches like me and other people that work with me and the Angel Goddess, they help people face their fears before they get to the medicine. And so I always tell people, be curious. If it asks you something, you see a scary vision, why are you showing this to me? And once you do that, you'll find that. And that's like trauma. Once you're curious why something happens to you, maybe you'll start finding the answers to it. And so that's where plant medicine is really, really powerful. But yes, it starts with the intention and maybe getting some outside help. And I really say this strongly. If you're going to go somewhere and sit in plant medicine with anybody and they don't do any kind of coaching, or on the back end, the prep work and the back end, that's a big sign, at least for me, because if I didn't have a coach to help me get ready for that and then also integrate everything I learned, I would have really struggled with it. And so a lot of people get depressed after, because they have this beautiful spiritual awakening and then they come home and they don't know what to do with it all. And so I help people turn it into purpose.
That's you said that right on the spot for me, because I felt like, as you were talking about these experiences you had, like it's fine and dandy. I mean, your senses are awakened. Your vision of who you are is reflected upon you, and I think that's such a great interpretation of it. But what do you do with it afterwards? That's kind of like the goal here. And I know, speaking with, people that have gone through addiction, or people that have, and specifically you as well, once you make that realization, and like you're facing your inner self most of the time, that no one actually ever sees, it's really hard to view that and say like, oh, I'm okay with how I was, and I know that I want to change. And it's like at that moment when you actually realize that you
Mhm.
have a problem and you want to fix it, and these are the steps to fix it. So that's amazing.
Mhm.
So I want to go back to your angel goddess healing. Um, who is angel goddess healing for, and what does working with you look like?
I always say it's for everyone, anyone. It's for everyone and anyone who's curious to know a little bit more about themselves. Because that's what it is I always tell my clients, I am not going to ask you to do anything I haven't done. So yes, sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but you have to trust me. And so that's that thing of that belief. I believe in what I teach here because I walk through it. People come and they see the miracles because I've walked through it. And so they trust me and they walk through their own miracles. And that's what I say. I'm not healing you. I'm helping you learn that you can heal yourself. And that is the power. And so anyone who that resonates with, that's it. I can meet you where you're at anywhere, as long as you are willing to dig in and be a little curious. And so anyone who's willing to meet me at that and just wants to dig in a little deeper, they're welcome here.
That's amazing. What a resilient way to kind of go through your pain and be able to help others. Uh, that's hard to follow up. When someone experiences pain just like you have, and of course everybody has their own version of pain. Um, it's so amazing to see how like the human soul can overcome a lot. And you said it so well. You said the willingness to want to make that change. And it's that free will aspect of things that I tie into so well, because
Mm.
we have a choice. And when we make that choice, even though we make the wrong ones most of the time, we're not perfect, um, there is always a way to fix anything that happens.
And what if
And
the point of making choices was to figure out what we like or don't like? You
yes,
said like we
correct.
make no choices. I'm really trying to help like shift people's perspective of what if life isn't about like good or bad, or you made the right or wrong. What if it's just about discernment? Let me go try this and see how that feels. Let me try
Mm,
this one and let me see how that feels. So I tried the addiction thing, and honestly, I liked it. It made me feel good. Why would I not like that? And so that's that thing. It wasn't a bad decision. It was a decision that made me feel good, but then it had other yucky things. And so it's that like my partner always says, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is it worth the pain? That's what happened.
yeah.
The pleasure stopped, but then I found something else that I prefer. And so you just said it when you said it's a choice. Forgiveness is a choice. And I tell people the reason why I choose forgiveness is not because I have to, not because religion tells me, not because someone tells me. It's because it makes me feel good. And it's in a selfish way. Because when I say I'm not having anger and I forgive and you have no power over me, that makes me feel good. But then when I say I still see you and I want you to get help and I want this and that, that's that love. But it starts with because I love myself so much that I like same thing, the time is worthy. And so it's just that really important, those little keys that we don't even notice that we say society has made us think it's good
Yeah.
or bad, black or white. What if it's not, people? Like literally, what if it's our human experience is to experience it all of it, all of it. So I'm like, give it to me. I want it all. But guess what? I experienced all the bad. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good with that. Now I get to experience the light and I like the light. And so in a selfish way, it's easy for me because it makes me feel good. So I tell people, do what makes you feel good, whatever that is. Doesn't matter. But there might
Yeah.
be something else out there.
Yeah. Perspective of choice is a pretty strong one for me and for most people. And you're 100% right as to um, how you make those choices, and what conclusions you come to. And you're kind of explaining it in a different perspective, which I haven't really looked at before or thought about, which is, what if it's not about black or white? What if it's not about right or wrong? That's pretty interesting to kind of think about. But, like you said, society just kind of puts these markers for us to follow. And because we need to follow those markers, either you're good or bad, right? And that's not how I see certain things, because you are you and you make choices accordingly. And in my faith and my belief, God gives you that free will to make that choice, even if you do make the wrong one. But then you're questioning, what if there is no wrong one? What if it's just the experience?
Well, let's talk about free will. What is free will? We all like free will, right? We say free will, but if you do what I don't like it then. So is that really free will? And then, so that's that thing of, I want people always say, like, just be curious, be curious. Is that really working? That system that we're under, saying, I will give you free will, but if you do this, then you're bad. That doesn't make sense to me. So what it is I'm starting to be like, what makes sense to me. And like I say, what makes sense to you might be different in someone else. But what I like to do is just bring a different point of view. Like you said, what if we wrong? What if the free will isn't what we think it is? Because we want unconditional love. We say unconditional love, but we're loving people with conditions. And so that's the difference of, what does that look like? Right? We want it, but we don't give it to ourselves. We put conditions. Okay, Shannon, you're not going to be lovable if you're not pretty, if people don't like your Facebook post, if you don't have the right car. That's putting conditions on myself. And then I go do it to other people. So now I'm like, no.
Yeah. Society plays really well into what is portrayed. I mean, even like my kids, and how they're kind of like getting into like the younger realm of things. And you have it so down. You said something about unconditional versus conditional. There was this book I was reading. I forgot the name, and I will try to probably put it in the show notes if I find it. But the gentleman was explaining how he, after many years, asked his wife, for many years has been asking his wife why she loves him so much. And she said, I just don't know. I know that I love you. And he went on to explain how he didn't understand, because he was able to explain how he was able to love his wife because she was like this, and how he was able to love his wife because she was like that, and went on to give many explanations, and his wife couldn't give any explanations, and he questioned that to only later find out that that was unconditional love. She just didn't know because she had no conditions for him, and so there was no conditions to follow, where in turn he had conditions, because he said, oh, she needed to meet this expectation of him, I need to be this pretty, I need to be this skinny, I need to be, like society plays into those cards very well. So yeah, I agree with you. We put conditions on a lot of things, even though we want unconditional, but we don't. We never we get conditional as well. So
that's the point. The free will, we give it, we want it, but we don't even give it to ourselves. We won't even allow ourselves to try this different thing, because again, is it bad? Is it this? That is why I always say, I'm like, we're kind of silly. Like, we're kind of silly here, guys. And so it's that thing of, I'm kind of stepping in, and I really feel like it's different. Like, I'm like, we got it wrong. And maybe it's something else. Maybe it's another answer. Maybe it's love. And the reason why she didn't know is because that's all you are. I truly believe, and my knowing is, we're all just love. It all comes back to love. So what is love? When you're in love, that's why we say, oh, I want to be in love. I want to be in love. Well, sit in love with yourself first, right? It's a being. It's in love.
I was talking to a friend who's going through a hard time today, and I was explaining to them, saying that, I think you need self-discovery, and you need to love yourself, because you're telling me all these things that you want in life. And, he's a devout Christian, and he wants this. He wants to find the perfect wife. He wants to, going through a divorce. He wants this, he wants that. And I just keep telling him, I'm like, dude, like, you need to like learn how to love yourself. It just seems like you don't. And that's like such an important key part of understanding who you are, is being able to withstand yourself. And And that resonates to me because everybody I talk to, pretty much anybody I've interviewed has said the same way. It's about self-discovery and
Mhm.
self-love and understanding who you are before you are able to help others. And that is something I'm learning as I go along, which is pretty amazing because I never
Yeah.
would have imagined I would be in this realm or even be here talking to you 6 months ago, 7 months ago. So it's almost like a blessing in disguise for me to be able to go through my pain and be
Mhm.
able to tell this story and then
You're
go on
speaking.
and say, hey, what if it's like this? Hey, what if it's like that? Hey, what if we got to do this? Hey, and then, like get all that information and then build
Mhm.
something strong and be like, okay, like if you follow these and it didn't work, let's follow these. Let's see if this works. And
Mhm.
self-discovery, discovery of other things, opening your mind up to other scenarios,
Mhm.
what if you have it wrong? You've explained it and put it right on the spot for me. And I love that. And then that's just ideal for someone who is in that self-discovery mode to be able to
Mhm.
make that transformation and to
Yeah.
be able to get to the healing process because
Mhm.
part of the healing process is your transformation and you
Yes.
can't get healing without the transformation. So
Yeah.
I love
And I would tell your friend,
it.
if he was my client, you know what I would say is, let's be curious about that perfect wife, right? Because wants a perfect that. It's because it's all outside of himself and it was the want. And what I kind of picked up on, I'm sure he just wants the pain to go away. And so it's like that thing of he wants the pain to go away, but he's looking on the outside. So that's that programming. If I have I have the perfect wife, then it's going to be okay. If I have the perfect job, this pain's going to stop. If I have the perfect thing. And so it's like you hit it where it's just self discovery. Be curious why we're behaving this way. That's the thing I want to get across is be curious. It says the answers are in our behavior, our patterns. And so if we're reaching out and we're going from relationship to relationship, because we're looking outside of ourselves. If we are like, we're never find it, it's because we're not willing to put it out there. It's that thing of just being curious about the why we're doing and wanting what we want. Why? Because we're craving love. And once we know we're love, we
For you.
won't crave it.
Yeah.
And then the world will change.
Yeah. It's pretty funny how you kind of put it that way. We're just human. Like we need attention, we need care, and
Yes.
sometimes we look at it differently, and like we
What's wrong with
described,
that? We shame the
and there's
answer.
nothing wrong with that. No,
Right.
but like again, it's the perspective that you gave is
Yeah.
knowing why you want that.
Yeah, and so
And
stop shaming
that's
the
an
men
important question
thinking
to
that
ask.
they
Yeah.
want it. Like we're
Yeah.
shaming the men thinking it's like it's okay that he wants the wife, like you want a partner, right? But it's the why. Do you really know why? And once you do that, then maybe he'll be able to find that partner that balances him. And it's not because you want something from him, it's because you want to give him something. That's why I'm with my partner
That's another,
because I have all the love for me, but what do I do with it? I want to give it away. That's why.
So I'm learning that too. I'm learning the fact that it is just not about my perspective of what I can do for me, but what I can share for or with others and give them uh, a little piece of me that is who I am, and maybe that makes a difference in their life. And that's kind of why I even wanted to do this, and why I even started podcast or wanted to start something, a journey, a perspective, a movement, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Um, Going back a little bit more, you kind of touched on, if people should try this, people should try that. If you can give one practice, anyone listening, that they can try within the next hour to take that one honest step forward, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, the honest step is I always tell my clients when they come to me, I'm like, who are you? Who are you? They don't really know sometimes, and that's okay. So we're like, let's be curious about it. And then the next step is I would tell someone, if you can close your eyes and have a magic wand, and I'm in front of you, I'm your little magic fairy, and I'm like, poof, whatever you want, you can have. What is the best, highest version of yourself look like? Right? That's the place to start because what's happening is it's like a map, right? I always see it like literally the map. And so we're trying to get somewhere we don't know where the destination is. So it's like going in your car and you literally don't put in the navigation, you're driving in circles and you get angry because you're like, I'm not getting there.
I
Well,
do
you
that
got to
sometimes.
know. Yes, you got to know where you're going first, guys. So that's the thing, is that's the first thing I would ask is, where do you want to go? What do you want to be? And so that's where I started. I started from the ground up after my divorce. I had nothing. I didn't even have a credit card in my name. So I started with that. And I was like, I want to be my most authentic self. And then I had to start to digging into that. And I've always wanted to help people. So then I just started doing that. And I didn't even charge. It was just helping and helping. And then before you know it, guess what? My whole life, the way I make a living is being my most authentic self. People pay me to be me, right? Like that's the joke. I'm like, I figured out life. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty easy. You get to make a living being you, but we do the opposite. We go out and we find these jobs to do the things that we want and pay for the things that we want. And then we get mad that we have the 9 to 5 and we're tired and blah, 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 blah. It goes on because we're building it backwards. You're not doing what you really like. So that's what I would ask people, stop and listen. If you're driving or listen, just stop and envision. What would the most highest healed version of myself look like? What would they be doing? Right? And then you start doing that, but start there. Start there.
That's awesome. That is pretty awesome. I was going to ask you, what sentence you would like the listeners to repeat this week, but it's more like, what question do you want them to ask? And I think that's such a perfect question to ask anybody listening right now. What is the version of yourself that's the highest? And I think that's just so ideal to ask because, I want to ask that question myself too, because I'm still in discovery mode myself. What is the highest version of me? Is it being happy? Is it being successful? Is it being in love? Is it having my kids around me? Like, what is the highest version of you? And that is awesome as a question to ask. If someone was in distress right now, what is one safe action that that they can take today from you? Something that they can do if they're feeling bothered or in the midst of somewhat of not a crisis, but more of like a self-discovery, and they don't like what they see and they don't like the questions that they're asking. What is one step backwards that they can take to be able to take that next step forward?
It's so simple. Connect with another human. Speak your voice, speak your truth, get it out, say something, right? We're so scared to ask people, I'm not feeling good. I'm thinking this bad thought. Get it out. That's what we're here for. Reach each other's blind spots. There's things that you can see and help me with that I can help you with. That's what it's supposed to be. But we want this human connection. So imagine you feel so lonely right now. Someone's listening and they just feel like they want to die. The one thing that will save them is feeling connection, but we don't reach out because we've shamed it. And so it's like, that's the answer. It's like the poison and the antidote is in it. And so if you're feeling lonely, do the opposite. Reach out. But what's happening is we're wanting connection, but we're making it harder. We're doing more things. We're doing more in our schedule. We're doing phones and iPads and watches now. And now they're in their ear, literally, our watch, our ear, you can wear the mask now. Yes. And so we're making it harder, but that's what it is connect with people, reach out to somebody, anybody.
I completely agree with you. We are, as much as we are connected to the world, we are so disconnected from ourselves and other human beings. I completely agree. And I'm at fault for it too. I mean, I wake up, the first thing I do is look at my phone, which is so the wrong thing to do.
So try this. The first thing you wake up, talk to yourself. Talk to yourself. Imagine if we looked in the mirror, the first thing we woke up and we grabbed a mirror, said, hello, who do you want to be today? How are you feeling? Instead of getting on Instagram or Facebook and check, how many posts did I get? Okay, all right, that says I'm going to be a good right? Like imagine if we all had a mirror next to our bed and that's what we had to look at, was saying that. Those are those little things that you have to be willing to do. It's scary. It's scary. When I was at treatment, I didn't want to look at the mirror. I literally had to look and say, I'm a good mom. It took me a while. So you know what I did? I turned it over and I just said it. So start with saying it, But Jen, look at it. Look at it. Be willing to see the love that you want for people. Look at it in the mirror. And are you willing to look in the mirror and say, I love myself? And once you can do that and you mean it and you feel it, then you're ready to go love another human.
That's awesome, Shannon. I mean, you gave definitely an interesting perspective today, and I love that. And thank you for spending time with me and talking. And I think we had some really good points that we made, and perspectives that people can kind of view and make decisions by themselves. If people want to find you, can you just briefly tell them how they can reach you? What's the easiest way? What's the most impactful way that they can get your attention if they need to?
Yeah, so right now they can go on my website. It's www.angelgoddesshealing.com. And so they can go on there. I offer free consultations. They can click on there and make an appointment. And I always say that. I do a sliding pay scale to where I always meet people where I'm never going to turn anyone away that really wants to help. I have other team members that can help them and coaches, but it's that thing of starting just to be curious. And so if there's anything they want, they can go and see the different services and just reach out. My phone's on there. They can text me. But the easiest is if they're curious, just do a consultation and we'll meet and we'll just see what happens and we'll see if there's any magic there. And there's not, I got some other people. And so that's the thing. It's like, we got you covered. It's never about me. I want to just help. That's all it is. And so if I'm not the right person, I'm pretty sure I can help you find that once we know what you're working with.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate, again, your time, your energy, your devotion to others. You're making such an impactful presence in this world, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you for giving us the time, and to our listeners. And I hope we can get a chance to talk again sometime in the future and do a little follow-up and to see how you're doing and go from there.
Thank you so much for having me, creating the space for me to share my story. And ultimately, thank you for helping me be seen and heard today.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Welcome back, everybody. That was a pretty interesting interview, I would have to say. But before I close this out, just a quick word. Everything we're talking about here, the patterns, the pain, the deeper reasons behind behavior, this is the same ground I'm exploring through the Turning Point journey. Through the podcast, through the upcoming workbook, and the writing I'm building right now, including 2 books that I'm working on. One is a memoir-esque type of a book that kind of talks about my story and gets into the process of what everyday life of an alcoholic is, and describes alcoholism in a different point of view, from an alcoholic's point of view. And then the second book that I'm writing besides the workbook is going to be focusing more on the 5 pillars of sobriety. And the focus isn't just on stopping the behavior, it's on understanding what's underneath it. Because when you understand the root, you stop fighting yourself and you start working with yourself. All right, so let's get back to it. There are a few things in that conversation that you need to sit with for a while. Not just hear it, but actually sit with it. First, you don't need perfect memory for trauma to shape your life. I've been even reading about how trauma begins in the mother's womb. The affliction of the voices. A child doesn't need to understand language for it to feel unsafe. And that's the point that I want to get across, is the feeling of being unsafe in an environment. And that one right there breaks a lot of people open, because we think, if I can't fully remember it, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal anyway. No, that's not the case. The body doesn't need a full story to react. We've learned that time and time again. There's so much research about that. It just needs an imprint. And that imprint can drive behavior for years and years and years even into adulthood. Second, addiction is often the relief, not the rebellion. We need to put that into perspective because you need to understand that we don't drink because we need to. We don't drink because we're rebelling against something. We drink because we cannot deal with the pain. That changes the entire conversation because now we're not asking, what's wrong with you? Stupid questions I used to get. We're asking, what were you trying to soothe? What is the pain that you have? That's a different level of honesty. Third, forgiveness is not approval. And that is where people get stuck. They think, if I forgive, I'm saying it was okay. No. Forgiveness is saying, I'm not carrying that guilt and shame anymore. And that is it. It's as simple as that. You're not executing it. You're not validating it. You're releasing yourself from it. And that's the power. It's the power we hold in our hand. Number 4, you cannot rescue people you love. You can only walk with them. That is the bottom line. I hear stories all the time, throughout this journey of being a podcaster, I get to interview or do pre-interviews with a lot of people that want to speak their truth. And recently I was talking to this mother who had lost her son to an overdose. And she was completely broken as a human being. And she mentioned, she's like, we saw the signs, we saw things happening. I wish there was a way I can help them. And I wanted to tell her, you can't rescue your son. There's something deeper that's wrong. And that's one of the hardest lessons we're going to learn, especially as parents. Especially when you see someone you love in pain. But that real healing has to be a choice. But if you can make them realize what is going on, that one small step through that door that you can take, it opens up the whole mind. But, everybody's a little bit different. And finally, connection matters more than we can admit it. When someone is in distress, the answer is not more isolation. It's not figure it out alone. And that's how some of these rehab centers are and some of the recovery programs. They hand you something to read. You read it 30 days later. Oh, you should be cured. That's not how it works. Recovery is lifelong. It says something. Reach out. Break the silence. Because silence is where everything grows unchecked. And we see that every day. I want you to do something after this episode. Not later. Not someday. Tonight. Try it out. Sit with this for 10 minutes. No distractions. And ask yourself, what part of me still feels unseen? What pain have I been calling, quote unquote, nothing? What does shame look like in my daily life? If I could speak to the younger version of myself, what would I say? And what would the highest version of me actually look like? Not what sounds good to me, not what people expect of me, what actually feels true deep inside. Because I had that same calling. If I don't know where you're going, you'll keep circling that same patterns and calling it. You're living life. And that's not what we want. And here's the one I want you to take with you this week. What happened to me is not the end of me. Say it again. What happened to me is not the end of me, because some part of you still thinks it is. Healing the child within is not about going backwards. It's about finally turning around and acknowledging the version of you that had to figure it out alone, the one that adapted, the one that survived, the one that carried more than it should have. And instead of asking, what's wrong with me? You start asking, what happened to me and what do I need to know? That's where healing truly starts, not in perfection, not in performance, in just that moment's honesty. This has been episode 5, Healing the Child Within. I'm Hampig Minassian, and this is the Turning Point Journey podcast. So keep walking, not away from yourself, but towards yourself, one honest step at a time. Till next time.